Copy 724, right. Center maintains 2000.
Center maintain 2074.
Comment 504 to center maintain 3000.
3000, comment 504.
In this video, we're going to be starting a new section, system and equipment malfunctions. We'll try to divide this section into two videos. So this is going to be the first part of that. The first thing I wanted to cover is like basically what causes this carburetor icing, and what are the indications of its presence. So the reason carburetor icing happens is because of the vaporization of the fuel combined with the expansion of air as it passes through the carburetor causes a sudden cooling of the mixture, which what ends up happening is like there's gonna be like the water molecule, like the drops, and that would be like you're gonna be essentially putting water inside the chambers of the engine. So the temperature of the air passing through the carburetor may drop as much as 60°F within a fraction of a second. Okay, and so for airplanes with a fixed pitch propeller, the indication is going to be the first indication of the carburetor icing is the loss of the RPM. Whereas if you don't have the fixed pitch propeller, you have a controllable pitch or the constant speed, also known as the constant speed propellers. The first indication is going to be that there's going to be drop in the manifold's pressure. Okay, what can we do in order to eliminate this carburet icing? So again, as we talked in the videos we did previously, that we actually try to send heated air into the carburetor in order to do that. So when the heat is first applied, there will be a drop in the RPM in the airplane. So it's not like you're gonna be able to resolve the issue right away. The effect, what happens is like when you start pushing the hot air, the RPM of the airplane is like again we're talking about the fixed pitch propellers here. That the RPM is gonna drop at the beginning, and again if you have other like the constant speed controllable pitch propellers, there's going to be a drop in the manifold pressure. Okay, so if the ice is present, right, there will be a rise in the RPM or again the manifold pressure after the initial drop, and when then you remove that heat, the carburetor heat, basically you turn it off, the RPM and the manifold pressure will rise to a setting greater than the before actually applying the heat. So that's how you eliminate it. Okay, so what are the conditions which are favorable for the carburetor icing? So anytime when the temperature is less than 70°F and the humidity is 80% or above, this is the humidity. Okay, carburetor icing is probable to happen and stuff like that, but it can happen like even at the temperatures like 100°F and the humidity as low as 50°F. You can still expect to like it's less likely, but it can happen. Okay, anti-icing equipment. And de-icing equipment. So the anti-icing equipment prevents ice from, like, basically the question is that, like, what are they, and if we can give an example of that. So basically anti-icing equipment prevents the ice from forming on certain protected surfaces. Examples would be the heated pitted tubes and the static ports, the carburetor heated fuel vents, propeller blades, and again those blades have the electrothermal boots, heated windshields. So these are the ones which are like, these are the anti uh, icing equipment, I would say. Whereas the de-icing would be, it removes, so the ice has already been formed on some of the surfaces, and this equipment basically remove that ice by like it removes the ice that has already formed on a protected surfaces. One other thing for the de-icing is that it is generally limited to numeric boots on the wings and the tail leading edges. And we're gonna be kind of elaborating on it by basically explaining how it works. De-icing working. So what happens is, like, when the pilot starts the process with the actuation, the boots attached to the wing leading edges inflate like a balloon, right? Uh, with air from the pneumatic pump to break the accumulated ice. So after a few seconds of inflation, they actually deflate back to their normal position, and they use the vacuum assistance for that. Okay, so if we have this equipment, right? If we have the anti-ice icing, icing, and the de-icing, right? Are we like, can the airplane still be flown in the icing conditions? So not necessarily. Like, even though if you have the anti-icing and de-icing equipment, it doesn't really mean that you should be good flying in the freezing condition, in the, sorry, in the icing conditions. So for this one, you need to actually you need to refer to the AFM or POH play cards and the manufacturer manual. So okay, now I wanted to cover detonation, and a lot of these things actually apply to the regular, like, the car engines too. So what is the detonation? Detonation is an uncontrolled explosive ignition of the fuel air mixture within the cylinder's combustion chamber. So again, like what's going to happen because of this detonation or uncontrolled explosive ignition? What's going to happen is, like, it causes the excessive temperature and pressure, and if it is not corrected, can quickly lead to a failure of the any part of the engine, like the piston, cylinder, or valve. Okay, now, so why does this happen, this detonation? Like, what are the most common operational causes, right? So I'm just gonna name them out here. One thing is, like, the if you are using a lower fuel grade than the specified by the aircraft manufacturer, this can happen. The second one is operating with extremely high manifold pressures in conjunction with low RPMs. You have low RPMs but high manifold pressure, this can happen. Then, if you are operating the engine at high power settings with an excessively lean mixture, the mixture is really lean, but, like, you are actually running the engine with high power settings. this detonation can happen. And the last thing is that if you have extended ground operations or steep climbs where the cylinder cooling is reduced, basically inside in the air, engine is getting enough air in order to cool down. But like when you are uh, either steep climbing or you are on the ground, uh, or very close to the ground where it is not getting enough air to cool down, that can happen. Okay, so what should you do if the detonation? What should be done, right? So if you are suspecting detonation, right? So detonation may be avoided by basically following the basic guidelines, right? Uh, so one is like the ensure that the proper uh, grade of fuel is used, right? Don't use any fuel which is not recommended fuel by the manufacturer. Okay, keep the cowl flaps in the full open position while on the ground to provide the uh, maximum airflow through the cowling. Again, I'm not gonna go into the details, and the reason is that not all the airplanes have the cowl flaps, and it's written like this, COWL. So if you have that, then you can do that. But the other thing is that use an enriched fuel mixture as well as shallow climb angle to increase cylinder cooling during takeoff and the initial climb. So definitely go with the enriched fuel mixture. And again, do not avoid the extended and high power steep climbs. Don't do that. Uh, and and again, develop a habit of monitoring the engine instruments because maybe the instruments are kind of putting like giving you an indication that this can start happening, and it will happen if you are not monitoring the engine instruments. Now the last thing I wanted to cover in this video is pre-ignition. Pre-ignition occurs when the fuel and the air mixture ignites prior to the engine's normal ignition event. And we did talk about like the four strokes and which stroke the engine does ignite and those kind of things. So if it is happening before the normal ignition event, uh, so that would be considered as pre-ignition. What happens is it results in the reduced engine power and high operating temperatures. And premature burning is usually caused by a residual hot spot in the combustion chamber, often created by a small carbon deposit on a spark plug, a crank spark plug's insulator, or other damage in the cylinder, and causes a part to heat sufficiently to ignite the fuel air charge. So it's some hot spot. It could be uh, again, it could be like on the spark plug, could be on the crank spark plug insulator, could be a damaged part of the cylinder, that kind of stuff. Those are the things I wanted to cover. Thanks for watching.